and welcome to a very special episode of The Collector's Corner, brought to you by the Washington Arms Collectors. I say this is a very special episode because it's multi-chapter, and you can write one of the chapters. Simply go to comments and leave your questions, or if you desire the privacy of the confessional, go to my email address, jamesatthewhack@gmail.com, and in discretion, leave your questions there. Now, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, the Armed Citizen, the Collecting Context, Part 2, Watson's Service Revolver. Now, in the 1887 adventure, A Study in Scarlet, Watson says he had an old service revolver and a few cartridges. And this is something that has puzzled Sherlockians for years. What exactly was the service revolver of Dr. John H. Watson? Well, we do have a few hints, but we don't have any outright declarations of what the revolver was. Nowhere in any of the canonical writings, and by that I mean any of the official historical writings of Sherlock Holmes and his friend Dr. Watson, is a revolver name ever given. We're never told that these are Webley revolvers or Tranter revolvers, and though that might be the case in some of the pastiches where people are writing later versions of the Sherlock Holmes stories, in the originals, the canonicals, you don't have any of that. What you do have is a few hints. We know that Watson's revolver was something that could be cocked to the ready, because in the adventure of the red-headed men, he carelessly, it's terrible gun safety, cocks his revolver and puts it on top of a crate. We also know that it was his old service revolver, and Watson was a veteran of the Second Afghan War, which was from 1879 to 1880. That means the revolver had to be chambered for .450. So with those two clues, we can come up with a top 3 possibilities for the service revolver of Dr. Watson. Number 3, it might have been a price variant. And here we have a price revolver which was retailed by John Rigby in London. It is done in a lovely dull nickel finish which wouldn't reflect the sunlight and make you targeted. It is a top break revolver. It is auto-ejecting, there you go, like that, and it is 5-shot. It chambers the .450 cartridge. It has a remarkably smooth trigger pull and is surprisingly accurate. I've used it to slay paint can lids at about 30 feet. Could this type of revolver been the revolver Dr. Watson used in the Second Afghan War? Possibly. There are perhaps even more likely possibilities, and let's go to our number 2 possibility, which is, and you know this configuration from our very first episode, Guns, Girls, and the Licorice King. This is a Webley number 2, but it is a Webley number 2 Bulldog, so that means it's in .40 caliber and above. This is in .45 caliber. It would chamber the service round. It has the extended parrot grip, nice ergonomics. It has a surprisingly good trigger pull. Now, this would certainly store well in the medical bag of a military surgeon, which was what Dr. Watson was. So, might this have been the service revolver of Dr. Watson? Well, perhaps. But the number 1 possibility, one favored by Mr. Gary James in his very fine series of articles, The Guns of Sherlock Holmes, or favored by Robert Keith Levitt in his Annie Oakley in Baker Street, the Adams revolver. It was frequently used and was issued by the British military to soldiers in the Zulu Wars and in the Second Afghan War. This is the Adams Mark III. And a fascinating little bit of collector's trivia. This is identical to the Adams Model 1872, but it is actually an Adams Mark III, something far rarer. It's the Mark III because it has a broad arrow indicating purchase by the British government, and it is stamped with the number 3, and it also has the date in which it was inspected and accepted into service, which is the 1st of January, 1875. So certainly this could have been the revolver of Dr. John H. Watson. So this is an Adams Mark III. It is, of course, chambered in the 450 cartridge. It is a surprisingly ergonomic gun, large, but it fits the hand well. It has a rather good trigger pull in single and double action and could be left cocked at the ready. Something like this could very well have been Dr. Watson's faithful old service revolver with which he helped to dispatch not only Tonga, the fierce Adamant Islander who tried to stop Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson with a blowgun, but he used this revolver also to put to an end the career of the Hound of the Baskervilles. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Collector's Corner. Please stay tuned for the final chapter, which is going to consist of your questions. So please go to comments and leave your questions or send them to my Gmail address, jamesatthewack@gmail.com. Now, until our next and final episode, which depends on you, keep your powder dry, your money ready, and both eyeballs scun for those amazing historical bargains you might find on the tables of the Washington Arms Collectors or our sister organization, the Oregon Arms Collectors. Thank you very much.